Hey, welcome to Overtime, where we take Sunday's message further. My name is Jeremy, and I'm your host. And this is a podcast where we just want to ask the questions that we think that you would ask as it relates to Sunday's message. And as we do so, we hope that it helps you grow in your life and your faith. With that being said, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of the podcasts that are coming out. Not only that, hit the like button, because when you do so, it helps us help other people. And if you ever have a question about Sunday's content or about Overtime, you can submit those to overtime@npaustin.com, and we will be sure to get to those in future podcasts. So with that being said, here's a quick recap of Sunday, and then we're going to jump into our conversation today.
How we could do a series called Love Handles, giving tools for relationships and not talk about communication. Part of the reason that communication is difficult is just practical. For example, you have about 10,000 facial expressions that you are capable of making. This is a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Jesus does, in his very brilliant Jesus way, he uses a metaphor that everybody there can understand to make a very simple but also very profound point. What you say flows from what is in your heart. We can only pretend or present for so long before the heart ultimately shows itself. A couple simple steps might just look like this. I think the first step is really trying to do the work to identify what's happening in your heart. Once we can name it, it gives us the ability to sit with and kind of listen to what's happening in their heart. I really think this third one is what makes it all come together, and that is ultimately inviting God into the process.
Are you ready? We're just gonna start fresh.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Hey!
Golly.
That was forced.
Yeah, that was a little forced.
Was that a little forced? Hello, everyone. Okay, can we start with, we're in a new space.
Yep.
Well, we're not in a new space. We're in the same room.
Yep.
And I just want to point out, I don't work here, which I point out often.
Yeah,
I feel
you like to really insert that
just
quite a
make
bit.
sure it's clear. Mainly, but what that affords me the opportunity to do is see how often things change. Because I don't know that you guys see it. I think you're just like moving furniture all the time.
Yeah.
Like doing new things in the building. And you're like, yeah, we just did a thing. But like every time I walk into the building, it's different in some capacity. Which I'm just wondering like what core need that is like filling for the staff of Northpoint.
Well, I was thinking about that too, because Mick Hooper,
Okay.
who, if y'all don't know Mick Hooper, he's kind of behind the scenes here at Northpoint, and he builds everything, and he fixes everything from toilets to stage to the roof, like stuff. And what's the word I'm looking for? It's insulation.
Okay.
Insulation that's in the ceiling of the auditorium, and he does everything. So he built our stage. He built the baptismal. He built the wood wall over there. I mean, he built every single thing in this space, all the volunteer. And he's amazing. But he's been doing all sorts of different projects for 8 years now in this building. And I did have the thought this past week of like, we've been in this space for 8 years. How do we still have things that are being built and constructed on such a regular basis?
So like, is it because you guys love change? Like, do you...
Can I interject here a little bit about this whole change thing?
The man behind the camera.
So I didn't really like make that connection, Jen, until you mentioned it when you walked in. But
You didn't recognize?
no. I know the change, and I like make fun of it all the time and stuff. But then I was like starting to think about like all the different areas in which, at least for me, I experience change a lot, and like 85% of them have to do with Jeremy and his antics.
Okay, so it's really Jeremy.
Yes, it really is
like
Jeremy.
if it were left up to Jordan, nothing would change?
Yeah, I mean, if you walk into his office, like
Physical spaces you're talking about, right?
Hang on, let me expand on this a little bit. So,
Good to unpack this.
Good.
I mean, if you walk into Jordan's office, he's probably got like a Tupperware that's been sitting there for 6 months that he hasn't moved yet, right? Because
That just makes him dirty.
So, well, I know, but his desk is like looked the same, whatever. My desk has looked the same like from day one that I've started working here. It's been the same setup that I've moved from place to place that I have been moved to, like as I have been asked to move offices by nobody in particular.
You're looking at him. You can't see that off camera.
Just for the record, I've been in every single office multiple times now.
Me too, but not because I've wanted to be in every single office.
That's fair.
But hang on. So the room space, like, you know, every like couple of months, Jeremy will come to me and be like, we need to change this room. And I'll be like, oh, sweet. So it's like a work day for me. And it'll be fun, you know, whatever. I get excited about it because I just enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But Jeremy's like this with everything. So, productivity apps, he gets super psyched.
Okay, can I interject,
He
please?
gets super stoked about
Can I interject?
productivity app. And then like a month later, he's like, I hate it and I got to find a new one.
I have used the same productivity app.
Which is
for
what?
like
Just
2+ years now.
Okay, and it is?
Evernote.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I have a...
Hang on, whoa, Evernote. I was talking about like ClickUp, and then there was a
Oh,
Notion,
ClickUp
and
is so
then there
great.
was a...
Those are organizational things, though.
Yeah, that's
Like,
project management.
Yeah, but
project
who suggested those?
I suggested it because Team Chores like closed down. I was good with Team Chores.
Yeah. But you
We've
were
totally
on...
derailed the
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
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 Because
because
this realization I had as you mentioned that, and I was like, wait a minute, this could be funny.
what I love
To
is
just
that
call Jeremy out on...
similar
Yeah.
to like a married couple, you two are blaming each other for the changes that
Well,
are
they do
happening.
call we are work wives. Is
Yeah.
what everybody
Okay.
says.
When you were
Okay.
saying like, oh, I can't think of something with Ashley that's like a super silly fight. I mean, me and Jeremy could probably sit here and talk about
your super
Yeah.
our
silly fights.
stupid arguments that we get into over stupid stuff. And then like halfway through the arguments, we're both like, wait a minute, I don't care about this. And then we go
Yep.
back to our offices.
100% true.
That's the most adorable friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
I
that.
don't know if it's a friendship, but
So now you're
It's
because
a healthy tension ship.
okay.
Tensionship.
It's a healthy tensionship. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a word.
I just made it up.
I love it. Let's let it catch on. Okay, so I'm thinking of this in light of Jordan's conversation on Sunday. Like I'm picturing that cycle, right?
Yep.
Now I'm thinking of you two, not you and Ashley. I'm thinking of Josh and Jeremy. But like when you go home, do you rearrange home stuff? Are you always have a house project? You're always like reorganizing shelves, or like what's that like?
a little bit. Yeah, I did it a lot more like before I was married, probably.
Okay.
Because right now the way we've been doing things lately, like we built these floating nightstands that
Okay,
are
yeah,
attached to the
yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
So it's a little more of a project to rearrange those in our bedroom
Oh,
and stuff like that.
yeah.
But Ash does get, and it could be right now, like with our second kid on the way, like nesting.
Oh yeah.
She does get a little excited and like moves things around in certain
Yep.
rooms and stuff. So I don't feel like I have the need to do it as much anymore. Like I came home one day and she painted an entire wall in our living room.
Okay.
And just went out, and I think I had said like, yeah, sure, do it. And then she went out and actually did it that day.
But you
and
love
bought
those
paint.
kinds of changes.
Love it. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's fantastic. Like right now we're planning on like trying to build like a whole built-in in our living room. And so those kind of things are super fun. But when I was a
Okay.
kid, I used to lock myself in my bedroom and rearrange everything in there.
Okay.
Like move the bed over here, and I would hang different things on the walls, and it was like happy times for me to be able to do that.
So I do think, so to bring this back to our discussion from
Yeah,
Sunday,
yeah.
because I love to rearrange. Like I could rearrange furniture monthly easily, and
Right.
love to like re-envision rooms. I'm actually not even good at it. Like I don't have like a decorative kind of like skill set,
Right,
but I
yeah.
just like to move things. And then the more that it's funny because we talk about personality tools or whatever, but when I kind of jumped into the Enneagram, one of the like characteristics was loves to rearrange furniture. And out an effort to like control. And so what I began to notice in my world was like, I will be more prone to rearrange things when I feel like there are things that I can't control. So I try and find something to control, right? And I can control placement of furniture. So like what I'm wondering, so just again, bringing it back to the conversation from Sunday,
Yeah.
like it wasn't about the Chex Mix when Jordan was talking about,
Right.
talking about this cyclical fight, because there was something behind the Chex Mix conversation for Buck. It wasn't just the potato from week
Right.
one. For me, it's rarely just the list of fusses or fights that we have. There's for me, it honestly is something doesn't feel right, and so I gravitate to fight for what I feel like I can make right.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And furniture placement is never going to be right, but there's this illusion that we can get it right. But
Yeah.
you could always move something.
Yep.
And there's not just one way to do it.
Yep. I think for me too, just checking something off, like when I want to avoid something else.
Oh, okay.
I can move that chair around and feel like I was pretty productive
Yes.
today, though.
Yes. That is why I make lists, just to check things off.
Yeah.
And I will just list things like brush your teeth. I'm like, this is going to be a given anyway.
And then the dopamine kick
And
you
then I'm
get
like,
when you check it
yes,
off.
I
That
did
was
it.
awesome.
Which is a fight that Sal and I have often.
Yeah.
Is, so let me, and if you can think of one of you and Ashley that you kind of cycle back through. Actually, I did think of one for me. Is like we fuss about my lists often. Like I'm always making a list, and he's always like, I don't want to do your list. And I'm like, but the list has got to get done, and I made you one too.
Yeah.
And I give it to him as a gift.
Yeah.
And he doesn't feel like it's a gift.
Yeah. I wonder why he doesn't feel that way.
I wish this was like he could be here to share his thoughts. But
Yeah. That's a great idea, actually. We should.
You should bring Sal in.
Yeah.
He would never do it.
We should put Sal right there and Ashley right here.
He would never. That would be hilarious.
That'd be fun.
So, yeah, I think that what I appreciated from what Jordan was talking about is really getting to what is the underlying thing, like, why don't you like a list? Or why do I feel the need to make a list, right? And so what is actually up with the Chex Mix? Like, because, Emily's thing was like, this is illegal. We just did something wrong.
Am I going to
be in
be
jail?
Caught here, essentially? Yeah.
Yep. And then Jordan kind of going back to his root question. So how do you find the why behind what is going on in a cyclical conversation or a communication breakdown with you and Ashley? What do you do to find the actual motivator?
Well, for me personally, I'm really grateful that Ash gives me enough grace to be wired the way I am, in that when we find ourselves in a conflict and we can't seem to figure it out, oftentimes a little bit of like disconnection for both of us. And she knows that if I'm like super quiet, I'm fine, I don't want to talk about it, she generally tends to like disengage and allow me to process and come back and talk to her about it. Because usually I just need like a journal, a pen, or a walk around the block, and to be able to go, okay, here's the 3 things that I'm upset about, and here's why, and here's the part I can own, and here's the thing I actually want to say that I need to get off my chest. Usually that's how, we approach it. And for me, what I often find myself asking in those moments where we disengage and I'm trying, okay, there's tension in the relationship, clearly. If we were to just continue on our day, it's not going to go well. We've got to figure this out. And Buck has always told me, and we did premarital counseling with Buck and Jill, and one of the things we took from that was speak into the silence. And so, be the person in the relationship, always be fighting to be the one that's going to speak into the silence. So it's like the most painful thing in the world, because you feel like that you're giving them the win by being the first one to go versus being you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus, okay, I will go first and I will own my piece of what's happening in this conversation, this conflict. But the thing I always ask myself when I find myself in conflict with Ash is I disconnect and I just go, why am I upset really?
I almost kind of want to break down what you just, like you started off with, here's what I do. Okay, so here's what I'm actually mad about. Here's the 3 things. This is how it hurt me. And this is what I'm actually thinking. Like you kind of just like, and I'm going to go take a walk or, so I almost want to slow that down. Like go break. So you start with what are you actually bothered by, right? Or what are you actually hurt by or mad at? Yeah,
because when you're angry, when anger comes from not getting what you want at its core. Like I didn't get the outcome I wanted, so now I'm upset about that. And that's at the core. We could argue that, but anger is the result of underlying emotion, and it's not getting what I want. So usually when I find myself angry at her, I have to identify, what am I not getting right now that I wanted?
So I'm not going to argue with you about that. I like that because I do agree with that, but I also think it can come from, mainly because also I didn't think I was a very angry person until I started going to counseling, and she was like, you have a lot of anger issues. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, but because it doesn't look like anger, but I think it's unmet expectations. Because I think sometimes when I hear like, and you're not getting what you want, it makes me feel like I'm being selfish. And I do think there are moments that I'm literally just purely not getting my way. Like we're having this conversation right now in my marriage about house projects. I'm like, just take some money out of savings and let's just do them all. Because in my mind, we can get them all done. And he is like, let's just allot a certain amount every year to get them done little by little. Yeah. Which sounds ridiculous to me. Yeah. So, but it's not me being selfish. He's not being selfish either. But I find myself having to not be angry because I'm just, or even like a righteous anger, like this idea of like, hey, the world isn't as it should be. So anger is like an unmet expectation that could be, I'm not getting what I want, but it could also be. Yeah. And does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think to expand on not getting what I want, it's like not material things. It's like, I wanted this day to feel a certain way. Yes. And I'm not getting that want. And so now I'm getting angry at you when in reality, I had a bad expectation to have this perfect day or whatever that is, or whatever. I mean, we can attribute a lot of situations in conflict to we had an expectation that perhaps shouldn't have been put on the other person in the first place,
And not beating ourselves up about having those expectations too. Right. I remember boys were really little. I was in grad school and working and tired, and I got a day off school and I took them to the zoo. And they were like 4 and 5, maybe 3, 4, I don't remember, but like little. And they did not behave. So I was just livid because I had this day. But then I was in counseling and I was like, well, I know they were acting their age. Like I could logically see they're being children and being normal and, you know, not wanting to come off the playground or doing all the things, right? But what she kind of helped me get to was what really it is. I feel like I had such little time with them that when that little time I did have didn't live up to my expectations.
Yep.
I wanted a perfect mother-son day.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen, I punished them for it
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah.
Rather than recognizing that it just didn't happen
Yep.
that way and kind of holding it more open-handedly. But,
Yep.
So, okay, so you start with, okay, so what am I, angry, frustrated, hurt, sad, all the feelings. Like what feeling is it?
Yep.
And where is it actually coming from?
Yep.
And then you said you present to her like, hey, here's my 3 things that created these feelings. This is what I'm actually feeling. And you said you own your part.
Yeah. Because usually, I mean, the whole adage, if you're pointing your finger at someone else, you got 3 fingers pointed back at you. And I think just in a lot of these conflicts, like, my emotion is my emotion. It's not hers. So, like, I have to be responsible for my own feelings and emotions. And I always think of Brendan Manning, as often I do with these kind of topics, but he says that emotions are neither good or bad. They're just an indicator of what's going on inside of you.
Yeah.
And so if I can pull those things out and go, here's what's happening inside of me, and I can go, okay, this is what the emotion is, this is what's happening, and I can go, oh, that's mine, that's not hers.
Yeah.
That's not her fault. So I have to own my emotion. I have to own getting upset over this little thing or whatever it might be, or my discontentment, you know, is coming out on her and how we're discussing this financial thing or something like that. I have to own that that's my problem, not hers. And, and then also at the same time go, but when you did this, here's how that made me feel.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm just picturing her on the other side of you is like, she also has to let you own.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we either want to take it from you. It's like, I'm so sorry. If we have that kind of bend where we're like, we become a victim and a martyr. I should have never done the thing when it really is your emotion to own.
Yep.
Or we get defensive over it.
Yep.
It sounds like a lot of our arguments, I will sense, like, I'm trying to I'm just thinking of recent arguments. Like Sal, I feel like sometimes Sal can take a defensive posture. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll be okay with me saying that. I usually clear everything I say with him beforehand, but I didn't just think of that.
Because Ashley listens each week too.
I know.
And I'm like, babe, I hope that's not a bad thing to say.
Well, because I'm just thinking, like, in our dynamic, and it comes back so much when I was thinking of that cycle that Jordan had up on the screen, the pattern. Like, the earlier we can catch it, the earlier we can get off the crazy train. Like, you and I were talking about, like, we just end up in these repeat patterns of communication that are dysfunctional. But the earlier we can recognize, and sometimes it's recognizing that I need to let you own your thing and not get defensive and not take it personal, but you can bring to me you're frustrated. Like, you can tell Josh, you're on my nerves. And Josh doesn't need to get defensive in that. And it's hard because you can't control what the other person's doing.
Yep.
Because you can't control if Ashley will give you space or if she will listen. And I can't control if Sal is defensive.
Yep.
Which she sometimes is.
Yeah. But what's amazing is understanding a little bit, to what Jordan was talking about with Emily, am I safe versus him, am I enough, is understanding your partner, your spouse's, core need, desire.
Yeah.
Because Ash understands me to the extent to which she's able to go, the way he's wired, I'm going to give him time to, like, process this conflict. Mm-hmm. And she could very well, like, press on the gas and just bug me and, like, we need to talk about it, and why aren't we talking about it, and why don't we talk about it? And that would probably make things a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Because, and vice versa too. If we're in conflict and I go too far disengaged, I could really hurt her.
Yeah, you put it in reverse.
Yeah, exactly. It can go both ways. And so really very, both of us understanding how the other operates in conflict, I think, is just so important.
Very.
To like, it's just small little hacks. And we had one couple tell us once, like, don't fight after a certain time. Just very simply, like, after 9 p.m. fights are just not, like, bring it up to the next day. Like, if it's something, like, just, and it's hard because you don't want to go down, you don't want to, what is the phrase? Don't let the sun go down with anger in your heart.
Yeah, there's a verse and I think we just misplaced that. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean the actual literal sun, but it does mean a season. Like, maybe, and just knowing, I think it's more God's way of saying, hey, there's just a time to kind of take a break.
Yep.
Call a time out. You can pick it back up when you're more clear-headed.
Yep.
And I think Jen Ferguson's the one who talked to me about, like, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt, like,
bored,
stop.
Bored, stress,
halt
BS.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that better. I've been saying halt, but I like halt BS.
It just adds
so many layers of meaning.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, and stressed.
And so if you can recognize if I'm any of these things, that might contribute
Yep.
to the reason this is amplified.
Yep.
And
it's why very simply, we say, oh, I'm hangry right now. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's not you. I'm just hangry.
Yep.
I'm hungry, angry. And those are 2 of the 6.
Yeah. The other one I would add in there is grieving, which I think because we're not trained enough or taught enough to recognize grief. We think grief just comes with like a loss of a loved one. It's like, no, you can grieve so many. It's whenever anything isn't what you thought it would be, there's a grief process. Right, and that's tiny and that's huge. And some grief processes I think are harder to navigate than others. But if you're grieving, it comes out sideways.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how to tell you this, or I don't, all of a sudden I just found myself so short-fused or so frustrated. So I love all those tricks. I love that. I think that
Halt BS.
Halt BS
G. Halt B. Yeah.
So if anybody HALT BSG could find a word,
there,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll look up an acronym generator.
I think, do they have those?
Yeah, there's you can Google one.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
The other one I think that I've tried to do, and we don't do it well, but I've told 1,000,001 couples to do it, is to just call a timeout. Like, and it's kind of thing, same thing you're saying, hey, after 9, we're not going to fight. You can actually even in mid, like even just a 15-minute break. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're going to call a timeout. I'm going to go take a walk around the block. But I think that, like you said, so we tend to either press on the gas or we put it in reverse. We don't just idle. Just idle for a second and kind of get some clarity. Because once I was having an argument with my son. It was a pretty big one. Apparently I argue a lot. I don't realize that until I start talking at Northpoint. But I remember God just kind of whispering hey, communication stopped a long time ago. Right? Like, you're not communicating anymore. So this isn't getting you anywhere. Right? And so I want to push the gas with him. I want to go in reverse with my husband. And there's a little bit of punishment in that. I like to
Sure, there's a passive aggressiveness.
There's a passive aggressive. So I love just the principle of timeout. Just and it literally 5 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe it is. Let's just go to bed. They say don't go to bed angry, but I'm like, well, but maybe I just need to go to bed.
Yeah, wake up in the morning, have a good cup of coffee, spend time with God, and that's a really important point too. We always talk about that verse. Take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. If we were to take that verse and bring it into part 2 of the series where you're talking about, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ.
Yeah.
One of the ways you submit to one another is by going, I'm going to take these thoughts captive that I'm having, this conflict that's going on. I'm going to make these obedient to Christ. I'm going to bring this to God and invite God in and say, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm wrestling with. Here's what I'm dealing with. God, what do you have to say about this? And that being such a good space, because there's been many times when even Ashley's just told me, hey, sounds like you just need to go spend time with God.
But I love that. I don't know that if Sal said that to me when we're in the throes of an argument. I would want that. It's it's a weird thing. I want that so bad because that is what is needed, and I recognize that. But that needs to come as early as we possibly can do it, right? So then if I am, and this is, I know, we constantly come back to that quiet time conversation, but if I'm daily checking in, I'll hear that voice sooner too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that would work for everybody. I'm an introvert, and I like silence and solitude. I like being alone. So when she's saying go there, it's go to the place that you're most comfortable and good, and then figure it out and come back. It's kind of a little bit of what she's saying.
When we're actually are able to communicate, because you're not communicating if you're not coming from that space.
Yeah, but for some people, it might be, you connect with God more extroverted, if that's not a word.
Why don't you go have coffee with a friend and process?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why don't you go call that person that you always talk to that has a trusted, understanding of our marriage dynamic and stuff like that. So it could be a lot of different things. That's just one of the ones that she'll notice if we're off or we're in conflict. She'll be able to pick up and go, have you spent time with God this morning? Yeah. And it's nope, I did not.
I love that, again, I just keep picturing that cycle that Jordan put up on the screen of and just that thought of where does taking your thoughts captive, it comes all the way through that, right? Yeah. And I even love landing on that verse with the thought of when Paul says that, he doesn't say judge the thoughts. He's take them captive. And so I just kind of picture this holding for a minute. And I did that even on a walk today. I had my feelings hurt by a friend, totally not intended to hurt my feelings. I feel like a lame, whiny person to have had my feelings hurt. But so I just took a walk this morning, and I was just that just hurt my feelings. I took it captive, and it's so, God, what do you want me to do with that? I'm looking at it. Do I need to address it? Because not everything actually needs to be addressed, but not everything needs to be ignored either.
Right,
so really taking that thought captive and then submitting those to God and say, okay, so God, what do you want me to do with
Right.
this thought. I love, but not judging the thought, because I think we either punish ourselves or or blame someone for the thought. Well, they made me feel this way, or I shouldn't feel this way. I should have my stuff together more.
Yep.
And it's like, don't judge the thought. Here's the thought. This hurt my feelings. This made me angry.
Yep.
And
on that too, like as we go back to the cycle that Jordan's talking about and doing what you're saying of taking thoughts captive, for me, one of the things in this season right now that is core fear, desire, because there's like central ones and then there's ones that's current seasons I think will pull out in my experience. And one of them is like, am I adequate enough to do certain things? Even house projects, or I see the weeds in our backyard and I'm like, am I adequate enough to take care of a Bermuda grass lawn?
Yeah. Oh, you have Bermuda?
Yeah.
Is it St. Augustine or Bermuda? Texas grass is a different thing, just so you know.
Yeah.
Other places in the country don't think about
Thank
their
you for
grass.
looking at me as if I know anything about grass.
You're about to, my friend.
I know. Well, oh my gosh. Yeah. Speaking
You're
of,
going to find yourself standing on your patio like this.
well, speaking
And
of
you're going to think of
marriage
this conversation.
and stuff like this, and like getting a house and grass, we were walking. Molly and I were. Sorry, this is going to derail the conversation for a second, but we were walking through my dad's neighborhood because that's where we're living right now. The other night, and Molly was like, "Oh, I can't wait to like have our own yard and be able to take care of our own yard." And she looks over at me and she's like, "Our yard better be perfect."
No pressure.
I was like, "It's not gonna be, but okay."
No pressure. I love that.
Yeah, it was just a funny moment. Like it wasn't serious or anything, but
No, but we had
all
the-
those same questions. Like I was asking myself all those questions.
Yeah.
Am I?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you're saying like, am I adequate enough to even do this? Last night, we were not the night before last, not last night. We put new light fixtures in, and there were a couple of moments, and I've shared this with Sal, so this is totally fine, that I wanted to be like, this is why we pay people to install things. This is why we pay people to install, because I cannot hold a dining room fixture above my head, like in my arms for hours on end. I can't do
Right.
this while he's hooking up. But I felt like this, like, don't say that. Like, and I told him later, he was like, I think we should have probably paid people, but he did it. He did it. And this is another thing I think that builds up a reservoir that helps these cycles is like, I've noticed with couples, maybe, and you two tell me if this is true with you guys too. So I didn't say anything, and that was like a good step for me. It's like, don't just say exactly what you're thinking. Like, think of what you're thinking first and before it comes out of your mouth. But then also, like, the next day I was looking at it, and I just texted him, and I said, that light fixture looks so good, and I love it so much. You did such a gret job with that, and I'll explain why this sounds so silly, but, like, Sal and I have realized we don't encourage each other enough. Like, we don't recognize when we have these, like, hey, you went and processed that, or hey, Ashley, thank you for always directing me. Like, we think it, but life gets busy and just kind of drags you along. And like, so think of, when was the last time you told your wives you thought they were beautiful?
Are you asking us?
Yesterday I did this.
That's so good.
I'm trying to do it more
Yeah.
because one of her top love languages is words of affirmation. So
There was a time or a season or a moment in our relationship. We've been together for 13 years now, about. And so, golly, that's a long time. But there was
Yes, it's for you young people.
But it was something about it needs to be a daily occurrence. And so she calls me on it if I don't tell her
Really?
she's beautiful in some capacity.
So, but I think that Sal and I had found ourselves just letting life pass by, and we're thinking kind things about each other, encouraging things, proud moments, and we just don't say them. And so I just think for some people, they need to remember to even say those things when you think them, because that builds a reservoir that then when that moment of like, oh my gosh, did the Chex Mix mean we're going to get, arrested, border patrol kind of thing, or the potato moment or the light fixture moment happens and we are irritated. It's like, but I built up a reservoir telling you that I do believe in you. And now, so not only thinking of core fears, but also core needs, right? Like, and love languages and all those things are really great tools and tips to like build up a reservoir that will then, when we do hit a moment, because you will hit a moment, you will be frustrated with each other.
Yeah.
So, but if you've done I think I'm so proud of you guys. It's like a mom moment.
actually,
I'm so
I don't
proud
think
of
it was
you.
yesterday. I think it maybe was the day before. Yesterday was a long day. Maybe Wednesday. Now I'm like worried. Like, wait, what was I again?
Yeah. She's gonna call you out on it.
I know. She's gonna listen to this, and then she's gonna be like, "You didn't tell me I was beautiful yesterday."
Well, and even Sal's version of this, when we were having this conversation, he was like, "You looked really nice the other night," and I saw it when we were getting ready in the bathroom together, and I thought she looks really pretty. He's like, but then we had to hurry. He's like, and it just. I need to make sure that stuff gets out of my mouth more. Like I need to say those things. So it's just really. And when we say slow down, it's really not that much time. Like just slowing down enough to be like, I'm not going to say that we should have hired someone to install this light fixture, but I am going to tell him that it looks great and I'm proud of him.
Yeah. These are the moments where I'm just like, I think I just learn more about being a good spouse by being on the other side of my spouse more often. Ash is just so good at these things. Like even when I just mow the lawn, she'll bring Grayson out on the patio. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. And the lines, she'll point out the lines that I tried to do and everything.
Okay, we all need to channel our Ashley then.
Yes.
Because I don't.
She's going to be so uncomfortable, but she does. If I do a house project, she'll just,
She just raves.
She just raves and raves. We're sitting on the couch later that night and she's like, babe, that light looks amazing. Like, so she does such a good job with that.
What is her Enneagram number? Can I ask?
She's a 2.
Okay, so I'm.
It's a little more natural for her.
Yes,
but
much more. Yeah. It feels so all I'm thinking is I might say, hey, the yard looks great, and then but we also need to plant this over here, and that needs to be pulled up. I only see what needs to be.
You're evaluating.
What is wrong all the time.
It's like when I've given you sermon feedback, and you're like, I don't care about what's good. Just tell me what I need to improve.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. But I'm super, super critical, and I had to kind of kill that part of me in some ways.
Yep.
And that's probably not healthy either.
Sure.
But really just knowing how you're made, all of this has so much to do with you've got to know you, which is so funny because I love that we started this whole series with how is it with your soul, because that just kind of at the end of all this we're going to have great tools and tips and tricks, and we're going to hopefully reframe some things like when we had that submission conversation, and reframing some things next week and the next week too. But all of it comes back to you've got to know you and how you're made and what you've experienced and how that shaped you and what you're bringing into not just a marriage in a big picture, but even into the day.
Yep. Yeah, and I have 2 more thoughts on all of this about affirmation
on
and
everything.
Stuff. Yeah, I think understanding how we're made and understanding how our spouse is made too. When Ash feels unappreciated, she feels it to a far greater degree as an Enneagram 2, and where you go in health, and we can get into all that stuff. But that's why one of the things I've learned is the specific things that take the most energy from her are the things in which I want to compliment and notice the most. So if I come home and she went through 4 loads of laundry or something, I know she hates putting away or putting clothes on hangers and hanging them up.
I hate that too.
Doing the laundry and dumping it, folding it's fine. I don't mind
towels, but I hate the hangers.
Yeah, the hangers. And so babe, thank you so much for hanging up all the clothes today. I just so appreciate. So those little things of appreciating the things that take the most energy.
Yeah.
Andy Stanley says that unexpressed gratitude is ingratitude.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I would add, just not the things that take energy, the places that we're insecure. I am so insecure as a mom. I'm so paranoid I'm not momming correctly. And I can all day long know there's not a formula. Yeah. But one of my greatest fears is that my sons will not grow up to be honorable men. And I know that I can't control that, but I operate as if I do. So when Sal encourages me as a mom and says something like that, I love that. Okay, what was your second one?
The second one is just this is a Brennan Manning thing that he talks about in his book, Furious Longing of God. He says that we all have the healing words of Jesus within us. We just don't use them. Meaning the Holy Spirit, when you put your faith and trust in Christ, Holy Spirit lives inside of you, which means you have these powerful words available to you to give to another person. And perhaps God has given you these words to give to that person to affirm them and heal something inside of them.
Yeah, without even knowing it. Yeah. You may not know what was broken.
Yeah, and so sometimes we'll be talking to someone and just going, God, is there anything that I can affirm here that perhaps I need to get out of the way and just be a conduit for what you want to say to them? But I think that's true with the spouse as well, to be able to go hey, I just want to affirm in you that you're made in the image of God, or just something like that, to go, perhaps someone just needs the healing words of Jesus sometimes.
I love that. I even love that in other areas too. Before I go into a meeting, God, I don't know how you want me to show up today. I'm gonna be myself, but I want to hear maybe there's something that happened to them at home. Yeah. Before I sat down at this meeting. And I think that checking in and realizing that I shared this with my community group today. I've been trying this thing with a couple people that have been texting me about some scenarios. Just they'll send me a text like, this is what I'm feeling, this is where I'm struggling, this is what I'm going through. And so they're wanting to have a conversation with someone. And what I've been doing without telling them, no one's picked up on it yet, but now it's out, is I copy and paste the text message they send me when they tell me what it is they're really wanting to say. And I just tweak a few of the words to like, as far as like the direction it's going in. And it's almost always right what they need to say. Because when they're talking to me, there's a little less of an agenda, because they're like, hey, here's what's going on with my spouse, or here's what's going on with my roommate, or here's what's going on with my boss. And I want to say this is what I want to say. And it almost sounds so great. But we're scared of our own. Like you said, like God is already talking to you. Those emotions are letting you, and sometimes it's even like, I am so hurt, but I know that's not what you meant to do. Like, well, then say that. I'm feeling hurt. I know that was never your intention. Mm-hmm. So I've literally been copying, pasting texts, and they'll be like, that was so great. They're like, how do you find those words? I'm like, they're your words.
Yeah.
God's already deposited them in you. You just have to trust that if you slow down enough, take a little bit of the, not take the emotion out, but step outside of it for a second and see it without an agenda and just let it be what it is. You can almost say exactly what you're feeling. Does that make sense? Like, because I think whether it's encouragement or bringing up a difficult topic, the words are probably more there than we realize.
Yep.
And just being open to being that conduit, even of your own feelings and conversations.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's so great.
I think we said lots of great things today. Do we feel like we've wrapped up today, or do we?
I think one other question is just.
Oh,
for
you got another one.
Just the last one. I think
okay.
Because we're the whole infinity loop cycle.
Okay.
Is really based on self-awareness and how well we know both our spouses or our person we're dating, their core needs, desires, fears.
Yep.
How do we discover our core needs, desires, fears? Like Jordan's, am I enough? Emily's, am I safe? How would you encourage someone to discover what those questions, those things are?
I would, and I'm a personality profile kind of junkie. So like all of them, knowing as much about yourself, the Enneagram's kind of like a trendy tool right now, but it is so good because it almost really just dials in on core needs and core wounds and core questions and core fears, right?
Well, and knowing, I didn't ask them if I could share this, but knowing Emily and Jordan's Enneagram numbers, like Jordan's a 3, so his is all achiever, mm-hmm. And so am I enough? And then Emily's a 6, which I'm a 6 as well. And so it's more, am I safe, or are things going to be okay, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so Enneagram is a great lens. Love languages is an even easier tool that I think can get you to some of that. Core needs, probably more than I would say core fears. I think, not taking anything, one of the thoughts that keeps coming to my head is like, Sal is not like being Sal at me, but he's got something he is thinking through, right? My boys aren't, being teenagers at me. It's not personal. They're navigating their own world. So if you can step out and think like, what might they be navigating? That they, when you're trying to figure out what their core things might be. Ultimately, like, I used to want I used to give Sal all the quizzes and want him to discover all those things. And he's into some of them and he's for sure not into others. But, I can't do that for him, but I've been able to observe some of those. So I think, tools, strengths finders, they're all such good. They all give you like, I look at it as like a gem, like a prism, that if I turn it this way, it casts a light in just a little bit. It's the same object. So you're the same you, but you show up in all different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And I think just the more you can know about that. So the easy answer is personality profiles and tools, not to be used as labels.
Right.
But to be used as to be transformative. And I don't know if maybe in like the description underneath the podcast, we could even just list a few of those and maybe link to some really great assessment tools. I think counseling is always great because they're just always reflecting back to you that helps you. And so many times I've been in counseling and a counselor has asked me a question that I didn't even know I needed to ask myself. Yeah. Right? So it's like, so is that really what you're, is that really what you're asking? You're like, no, that isn't what I'm really asking. Or like I told you, the counselor was like, her exact question was, tell me what emotions you feel other than anger. And I was like, I'm not an angry person. And then as I sat with that question, I couldn't name other emotions. And I was like, well, that's weird. Yeah. So good people asking good questions, tools, assessments, those are super helpful. And I know this is like, And I don't say this because I think it's like a cheesy pat answer, but you need to be still, you know, and whether you're a morning person that needs some stillness or you need to kind of decompress at night, but get quiet.
Yeah.
Turn off some of that noise and listen and practice listening to God. God will tell you what's actually happening if you give him space to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I would probably reemphasize the Enneagram.
Yeah.
People who listen to this podcast probably hear it quite a bit because we talk about it a lot here on staff. It's just a really helpful tool. And for me, one of the things that was most helpful for the Enneagram, because taking the test is like, oh, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. There's a Beth McCord, which now her name is popping up in my brain somewhere else, not related to this book, but I read a book about the Enneagram 6 specifically by Beth McCord, and I think she has one for every number.
Oh.
And it's like a whole book, and it was really, really eye-opening to name core fears, desires, where I tend to go in unhealth, where I go in like health, what health looks like, and stuff like that. And it was a really helpful resource.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, if someone's going, okay, let's me and my spouse do a deep dive on this.
Yeah.
What are we Enneagram type? And then let's like read our own, and then let's read each other's.
Yeah.
And I think that could be really illuminating.
I think if you want to challenge yourself, if you don't already know that core fear, the questions that, you know, am I safe and am I enough, like Jordan and Emily's, if you don't know what your core question is, I would go on a journey. I would start with the Enneagram. That would be but no matter what it takes for you to get there, be able to walk away in a few weeks knowing, okay, this is the question I bring to almost all situations.
Yep. It's
That's my challenge.
Yep.
Super challenging.
It's a great challenge.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah.
Do that.
So we did the new space. What do you think?
I
think it works. I think we'll keep messing with the feng shui, but I think it works.
Yeah. We'll see.
Is your Enneagram 1 about to come out? That face?
Oh, because like that is the other thing about my face.
Well, no. That's right. That's not what I meant. You just shook your head and you started to look around and notice things. And
no, well, so I think that, you know, my age also comes. Like I just don't. We've talked about this before. I'm like, no one died in the rebranding of this podcast, so we're fine.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, chairs are a little more comfortable, but I don't like this computer thing. That's a little off.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Maybe that'd be funky. Anyways, so we're going into part 4 of Love Handles this next week.
And it's Jordan.
Jordan is up, and I'm very excited. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give anything away.
Nope.
But I think it's a message that all people need to be at. I think it's going to be helpful for all people of all ages.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't grab your.
Yeah,
grab your students.
Yeah, high school and above.
Yeah, high school and above, I thought.
High school and above. It actually is going to have a PG-13 sign out front in the foyer. So.
So I love that you said that. You're like, actually, not all ages.
Yeah. High school and up. It's going to be very, very relevant, helpful, practical. And I
love that we're talking about it because I think that we kind of dance around it often as churches, but like, no, let's have a conversation about this. It's important.
Do it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you Sunday online or in person.
Do we say bye? I never know how
Can
to
if you
that.
want.
Okay, bye.